In 1-2 notes, let's start by doing a little review, some algebra review and some graphing review. Okay. And so here we go. I think you should err on the side for right now until you're very, very, very successful at this stuff. Err on the side of showing me too much versus too little. You will need to show me work to get credit for this class. Okay, so here we go. If I'm trying to solve for x and get the x by itself in problem 1, first thing you need to do, if you remember, is I need to get rid of the 9. So I'm going to subtract 9 from both sides. I'll draw my line. That's going away. Try to keep the equal sign under the equal sign mostly when I'm trying to organize myself. So I'm left with 4x on the left-hand side. Right side, I've got 14. And then this means right here, 4 times x, right? So if I'm trying to get rid of 4 times x, I need to do the opposite operation. So I need to divide by x. Remember, we write division this way. So over 4 over 4. Those now cancel, the 4's, leaving you with just the x equals. And then let's talk about correct kind of answers that we will accept for this class. So you're getting into upper level math. You should always be giving me an improper fraction, but fully reduced. Remember, the improper fraction has the bigger number on the top. So first, let's reduce this. 14 and 4 both reduced by 2. So if you reduce by 2, we've got 7/2. Remember, we've talked about those horizontal fraction bars also, so when we start throwing in variables. So please make sure that you are giving me that horizontal fraction bar and not a slash like we talked about in class, okay, so that there's no confusion when we start putting in a variable. So this is a no, all right? Get out of that habit, please, if I haven't already seen you, and make sure that you're using a horizontal fraction bar as we have right there, okay? So then, 7/2. Hopefully you're asking yourself, is there any number that goes into 7 and 2? And there is not. So that's fully reduced. Remember, that's called an improper fraction because the bigger number is on the top. Now, some of you might be wanting to say, oh, 7/2 is the same as 3 1/2. We don't use 3 1/2, which are called mixed fractions in upper level math, unless we're talking about like a recipe. Okay, if we're talking about baking a cake, then yeah, 3 1/2 cups makes sense. The general public would be a little panicked if they heard add 7/2 cups of flour. They'd be like, what? What are you talking about? Okay, so this is the type of answer you are always safe with, always. So go with improper fractions for right now. Please don't do decimals, okay, until we talk about that further in class for the requirements. So you are always safe giving me a fully reduced improper fraction. Box your final answer. Remember, you're always showing me all of your steps, 1 step per line, and then boxing that final answer. So I am modeling for you exactly what homework should look like. Okay, I'm modeling for you exactly what your work on a quiz or a test should look like for you to gain credit. Okay, once I know your ability, you might be able to show a little less, but it won't be much. Okay, so next problem. Hopefully the first thing you see in this one is that we need to distribute this +2. And if we do that, 2 times 4x would be 8x. 2 times -1 would be -2 equals 6x plus 4. At this point, I always like to combine same like terms on each side, which they already are. After that, I'm going to move things from side to side. I always target the x's first. So I'm thinking ahead. I'm thinking on this side, I have a +8x, and on this side, I have a +6x. Many of you want to have your x's on the left side, and that's fine. Some of you want to have positive x's. That's up to you, but thinking ahead, I'm thinking if I take away 6 x's from 8, it would be positive. So in general, I'm going to go ahead and go in that direction. That means that I'm thinking I will go ahead and subtract 6x from both sides. I'll draw my line. 8x minus 6x will give us 2x. Don't forget to bring down the -2. These are canceling. You're left with just 4 on the right-hand side. Now that I've taken care of the x's, I want to go ahead and take care of the constants. So I'm going to add 2 to both sides to make it disappear on the left side. So here's my equal sign. I'm left with 2x on the left. These are canceling, leaving me with 6. Divide by 2 because that's the opposite operation of multiplication. Those cancel, and now x equals 3. Final answer, boxed. All right, next one. Hopefully, order of operations, the first thing you see is a multiplication here, okay, with that parenthesis. So you really should be distributing the -4 to both of those first. Remember, everything else just gets copied in front of it. So 3x, -4 times x is -4x. -4 times -3 is +12 equals 7 minus 3x. Here's where I was saying last time. I want to work and just stay on this side and combine like terms before I move on. So if I combine like terms, I have 3x minus 4x, which is -x. Remember, treat them as like items, guys. If you put a s at the end of what you're saying, sometimes it helps. So if you had 3 x's and you took away 4 x's, you would have -1x. Remember, in mathematics, we do not write 1 in front of x's, okay? Just like we also don't write x to the first, we just write x. Okay, so get out of that habit if you are in it, please. But that does mean -1x plus 12 equals 7 minus 3x. All right, so now I'm going to move things from side to side. I target the x's first. Thinking smart, I'm thinking ahead. I know that if I add 3x to both sides, that'll give me a positive x. Plus it'll be on the left, which I desire. Okay, so 3x minus x is 2x. Bring down the plus 12. On this side, these are canceling, and you're left with 7. Now that the x's are taken care of, get rid of the constants. So the opposite operation is to subtract 12. You're left with 2x. Get that to go away. Equals 7 minus 12 is -5. 2 times x, you're going to have to divide by 2 to make the multiplication go away. And so now we're sitting at x equals, you should be thinking 1. Is there any number that goes into 5 and 2? And there's not, so that is completely reduced. It's an improper fraction. And then just don't forget, guys, that negatives must go either completely in the front of a fraction or in the top. It cannot be in the denominator. So be careful to make sure that it either, I think trying to write it exactly on the line is very hard to do like that. Okay, so the way that I take care of that, guys, is I always just make sure that I put it in the top. Okay, you are always safe if you will just always put the negative with the top. So -5/2. Box your final answer. All right, on with a little review of graphing. So graph each, find the slope and intercept. Let me see if I can move this just a little bit for us. Okay. So remember, for lines, we're used to slope-intercept form of a line. That being y equals mx plus b. And please remember that m is standing for your slope, and b is standing for your y-intercept. Please know up front, we require your y-intercept to always be an ordered pair. Okay, so keep that in mind. And the other thing that we're going to ask for you to do is to make sure that you always show at least 3 points. And we're going to make those 3 large points so that we can see them when we are asking you to graph for homework test or quizzes. Okay. All right. So if you notice in this very first one, right, this one looks just like y equals mx plus b. And therefore slope, remember, if you're showing me work, make sure I know what you're doing. So slope, fix that a little bit. M, right, the number in front of x is 1/3. Keep those horizontal fraction bars. So if I ask you just the slope, there's your answer. If I ask you for the y-intercept, And that is an ordered pair. So if you think about the y-intercept, most of you would probably at this point just tell me it's -2. Okay, but you got to say, well, you know the x, ordered pairs are x, y. The x is 0 and the y is -2. Okay, so if I asked you just for the y-intercept, that's the answer that you would give me. And then as far as graphing this, guys, remember when you graph, you are always thinking about rise over run. Remember, rise really means up and down versus run means left and right. So really, when you're talking to me about this, a lot of people say up and over or down and over. Well, the over part, you really need to specify, are we talking about left or right when you're trying to help somebody with this? So if my slope then is, I'll take that away, if my slope is really 1/3, I like to say that I know 1/3, positive 1/3, is either from doing +1, and I'm going to write it as just think. This isn't like mathematical correct notation. This is just what you're thinking. You'll see what I mean in a minute. You get positive 1/3 by doing +1 over +3 or -1 over -3. Think about that. Negative divided by negative is positive. So both of those would reduce to 1/3. All right, so then we're going to go to our y-intercept first, right? Y-intercept means go out 0 in the x direction, that's left and right, and go down 2 in the y direction. So there's that point. Make it nice and big so we can see it. From that y-intercept, you need to do a slope of +1 over +3, which would mean rise up 1 and to the right 3. Okay, and I'm trying to draw arrows so you can see it, because obviously you're not here with me live. If I were to do that again, I'd go up 1 over 3, and my next point would be here. Likewise, this is the reason that I did this for you, the -1 over -3. If I came back to my y-intercept and I went, for the rise, I went down 1, and the negative meaning left 3, that would be my other point. Okay, so notice all of those points lie on the same line. Now this is the part where we said show at least 3 points. I've got 4 drawn for this one. Okay, I've got 4 drawn for this one. If I use an eraser to try to clean it up a little bit so that you don't have so many things going on in here, and you can maybe just see my 4 points that I now have. Okay, and then do your absolute best to connect those. Okay, you can do better when you're not on a smart board. Don't forget, lines go on forever. That means you need arrows. Technically, without them, they'd be incorrect. And likewise, don't forget, use a straight edge, make that nice and neat. You will always have a nice straight edge with you at all times. It's called your ID. Okay, use the edge of your ID to make that nice. Okay, so don't forget, this was our x-axis, this was our y-axis. If you're having any issues remembering that, don't forget for ordered pairs, like back up at the x-intercept or the y-intercept, it's always x comma y. So just a little quick review with that one. The others will go a lot faster. All right, so here we go. Number 5, our slope. If I just asked you for the slope, then you would tell me m equals -2. Again, it's the number in front of x. The y-intercept, as long as it's already in the y equals mx plus b form, pretty easy to say that the x value is 0 and the y value is, straight from there, the 3. All right, so we'll go for the graphing. Go up 3 on the y-axis, so out 0 for x, left and right. But on the y-axis, you're going to go up 3. Put a nice big dot so you can see it. Because you guys are going to not have the color. You're going to have one pencil. So make sure that those dots are nice and big, those 3 points. All right, from the slope then, you're going to think, well, -2, guys, is the same as -2 over 1. If you take -2 and divide by 1, you get -2. Or Mathematically, it'd be the same as 2 over -1. Now, I'm not saying that's mathematically correct because it's not. We don't leave negatives in denominators. But a positive divided by a negative is a negative. Okay, so both of these are equivalent to -2. That's what I'm getting at. That's why I'm saying think about it. That'll help us with our rise over run. So here we go. From this point right here, the 0, 3, the y-intercept, I can either go down 2 for the rise, down 2, and right 1. Okay, down 2 and right 1. Or I could go, well, let's do it again. Down 2, right 1 again, which would put you there. Or back up from our y-intercept, I could go up 2 and left 1. And the reason I'm taking the time to show you those, guys, is I want you to be able to find points that are actually on the graph I'm providing you. I don't want you to run off the graph. So you've got to be able to think about that slope both ways. Once again, I have 3 points. I'm requiring you, or I have 4 points, and I'm requiring you to have at least 3. Right? Again, take your ID, do the best you can to connect those. It goes on forever, right? That's what we learned about lines, and therefore you need those arrows. All right, a couple more. That y, that number 6, is in the correct form once again. So y equals mx plus b in the correct form. And therefore, I can just read slope off of here. So m equals -2/5. Remember, I'm putting that negative in the top horizontal fraction bar. My y-intercept is 0, 1, 0, 1. Okay. I am off to the side thinking for graphing that -2/5 is the same as -2 over +5, which is the same as 2 over -5. Right? Negative divided by positive or positive divided by negative, both equal negative. Okay. So I'm going to go to my y-intercept of 0, 1, which should put you there. And if I think of the slope the first way, this way, that would put me at saying that I'm going to go down 2 and right 5, puts me there. And see, now if I go down 2 and right 5, I'd be off the graph. So that's why I'm now going to come back and think of the slope as this way, right, for rise over run. I'm going back to my middle dot, the y-intercept, the 0, 1, and I'm now going to say I will rise 2, up 2, and go left 5, which will put me right there. Again, now connect those. I'll do it the same color like you're going to have to with a pencil, okay, so that we see what happens. Sometimes now all of a sudden you can't see your points, so just make them nice and big. Go back and make them bigger so that I can see them, especially for a quiz or a test. Okay, all right, the last one, guys. Well, doesn't quite look like y equals mx plus b, right? So what's the only number you can add to something and not change anything? 0, right? So I could write +0 there if that's going to help you out. All right, so we're ready then to say that our slope, m, equals 3. If I just ask you to answer what is the y-intercept, you're going to tell me 0, 0. Right? The x is 0, the y is 0. Now, let's analyze our thinking down here before we start. For thinking about the rise over run, the slope, well, if slope is 3 and I know I want it to be over a number, what's the only number I can divide by and not change it? Well, that answer is 1. So this is the same as 3 over 1, which is also the same as -3 over -1. Because positive over positive is positive, and negative divided by negative is also positive. So once again, both of these equal, if you simplify them, -3. Again, you're just using those for thinking about how to draw the graph. All right, so we'll start at our y-intercept of 0, 0. Rise over run, let's do the 3 over 1. So that means up 3, right 1. And then if I go back to 0, 0, and I use the negative 3 over negative 1, that would mean go down 3 and left 1. And that would give you that dot. Connect them again the best you can. Well, you guys can do it perfectly. I'm on a board trying to do it very large, but you can do it perfectly because you've got an ID. Now let's say I just stop there, guys. I hope you're going to tell me that's wrong. That should bother you because lines go on forever. And therefore I need, you got it, arrows. Must have arrows. I probably need to go back and make those a little bit larger again. And you are set.